Good morning and welcome to another edition of Ceramic Storytime with Sue. Thank you for joining me today. I'll just do my usual checking to make sure everything's working as you're joining me here. So let me just check the Facebook group and see if I'm live. And today we are going to be reading my blog post, 99 Cone 6 Glazes You Can Try. So if you want to follow along, you can go to the link scrolling across the bottom of the screen. It's bit.ly/99 glazes. And that will get you to the blog post that I'm going to read today. So let me just... if you're here watching me live, please say hello in the comments so that I know that you can see and hear me. Yay, Joan is here. Hello from Texada Island. Awesome. Great. So if Joan can see me, I just still want to make sure that I can see. There I am. Okay, perfect. So then I can kind of follow along the comments. So there's a link in the description of this post at the very bottom. If you want to comment while I'm reading, ask questions. If you want me to see your name attached to your comment, you just have to click the link at the bottom of the description of this post. And that gives the software that I'm using permission to give me your name so that I can see. Otherwise, it'll just say Facebook user and I won't know who I'm talking to. Hi, Deb from Indiana and Lynn from snowy Winnipeg. Oh my gosh, Lynn, it's so beautiful here in Victoria this week. It's been like 16, 17 degrees. But yeah, Winnipeg, my family's from Winnipeg, so I understand the snowiness of it all. Okay, so again, if you'd like to follow along, please go to bit.ly/99 glazes, and that will bring you to my blog post. And I'm just going to make a little quick announcement. Let me just change something on my screen here. So I am I'm teaching a glaze workshop online on April 24th. So if you're watching this before April 24th, 2021, then registration is open until the 23rd. And so I just posted the link that you could go to get more information, but I'm going to be teaching how to mix glazes from scratch. So if you've never mixed your own glazes before, and you want to start, or if you're self-taught and you would like a little bit more direction, I'm going to be teaching the basics, and it will be very beginner friendly. And then we're also going to go through the steps for how to take a base glaze and test it with multiple colorants, which is what this blog post is about. So if you're interested in what I'm talking about today, then there is a workshop that you can sign up for. Just go to bit.ly/glaze mixing workshop, and that will get you to the info page and you can sign up there. Now, let's just hide that from the screen, and I'm going to share this screen here. So, and again, the workshop will be online and it will be recorded. So even if you can't make the time and attend the workshop live, you will get 3 months access to the recording. So you don't have to come live. If you do come live, you'll have the opportunity to type questions in while I'm teaching the workshop, and then I'll be stopping periodically to answer your questions. Otherwise, you'll be able to just watch the workshop after, watch the recording, and then go and perform the steps from the workshop in your studio on your own time. So hello, Facebook user says, watching you on the road from Michigan to South Carolina. Hello, Sue. Thanks for your generosity. Again, I can't see your name attached to your comment. If you want me to see your name, you don't have to, but there's a link in the bottom of the description of this post. And that will allow me to see who I'm talking to. Hi, Linda. Always good to see you. Yes, beautiful Victoria, especially this week. It's gorgeous out. Okay, so here we go. 99 cone 6 glazes that you can try. And so if you would like to download, you can download this blog post as a PDF as well. So if you go to the link or go to the URL bit.ly/99 glazes, and then you can click this link. And then if you enter your email address, then I will send you a PDF copy of this post. So feel free to comment and ask me any questions as I'm reading, and then I will pause to answer them. So exploring the potential of existing glazes. Have you been looking for new glazes to add to your glaze palette? If so, I have 99 different cone 6 glazes you can try. That probably sounds like a lot to look through, but it's really just 9 base glaze recipes plus 10 color variations each. These glazes came from a workshop I taught in Whitehorse, Yukon in 2019, back before COVID, when we could all gather and do fun, creative things together. In case you're not from around here, that's in the northwest of Canada, north of British Columbia, and east of Alaska. There were 18 lovely ladies who split into pairs, and each pair made 2,000-gram batch of a base recipe, and then split it into 10 cups and added a different colorant to each cup. They mixed and sieved and dipped test tiles from 3 different Plainsman clay bodies into each test. We fired all the test tiles to cone 6. Some of them reached cone 7. And then we had a really fun kiln unloading and glaze, test tile, organizing, and photographing party. The results were stunning and vibrantly colorful. There are glossy glazes, matte glazes, and even a crawl glaze in many different colors. Most of the base recipes are ones that I'm very familiar with from the studio where I work, so I knew that they would be great glazes at cone 6, but I hadn't seen all the color variations before, so it was pretty exciting. Color run results and recipes on glazy.org. When you take a base recipe and then add different colorants to it, it's called a color run. I've posted each base recipe with a photo of the whole color run of test tiles for that base on glazy.org. There's also a photo of the list of colorants that we used uploaded to each recipe. So if you're familiar with glazy.org, it's a recipe sharing website. So it's a place where you can upload recipes and photographs, and then you can share them with the public, or you can keep them private. So I've shared all of these recipes on Glazy with pictures, so you can go through, you can find the base recipe, and then you can match the list of colorants to the photo and see which kinds of colors that you like. So I made a bookmarked collection of all the workshop recipes in Glazy, so they're easy to find all in one place. So if you click this link in the blog post, you'll be taken to a page that looks like this. So here are the 9 recipes. And then if you click on the glaze, then it'll take you to the recipe. You can look at the chemistry of the recipe if you're into analyzing the UMF. And then you can see the photographs, which I'll show you in a minute here. So then you can click on a recipe to see the ingredients for the base glaze. Say we want to look at Sue's Calcium Matte. Click on the name of the recipe and you'll be taken to that recipes page. It looks like this. So here, it's kind of hard to see. So we got the name of the glaze on the top, and then here is the recipe, the materials, and the percentages on the right. And then there's a few different pictures that I've uploaded. So we've got the main picture. So when you click on the picture, you have to, the picture, because it's kind of long and vertical, it doesn't show the whole picture in the preview. So you have to click on the picture, and then you'll get this full photograph here of the full color run. So this is my calcium matte glaze. So on the top here, we've got the base recipe. And these are 3 different plainsman clay bodies. So we use the M370, which is the lighter clay body. So you can kind of see these ones. These are kind of go back and forth a bit, but the lighter clay body is the M370, and then the gray clay body is the M340, and then the dark clay body is the M390. And then these square test tiles over here are plainsman coffee clay. And those are just like some bonus that they wanted to test just a few samples on. And then I believe these extruded test tiles they might be plainsman polar ice porcelain. I think that's what those ones are. So yeah, lots of different colors and different clay bodies, and you can see the difference. Like when you have a glaze and you use it on different clay bodies, sometimes the results can be quite different. Like this one here, this is red iron oxide is the colorant. So you can see it's quite yellow on the white clay body, and then over on the dark clay body, it's kind of this brown, grayish brown color. So the clay body that you put a glaze on often makes a big difference in the appearance of the glaze. So when you're trying recipes, so if you go to glazey.org, it's also a place where you can search for recipes. You can type in a color that you're looking for or an ingredient that you want to include in the recipe, and then it'll give you lots of results to choose from. So you just need to remember that the result in the picture of the recipe is on that person's clay body. And so when you mix up that glaze recipe for yourself, and if you're using a different clay body, it may look slightly different. So there are 3 columns of extruded L-shaped test tiles that were fired upright. So that's all of these ones are the L-shaped test tiles, 1 for each clay body. The 3 clay bodies are plainsman M370, M340, and M390. In this photo, the M370 and the M340 switch back and forth a couple of times. The whiter clay is the M370, the gray clay is the M340, and the dark clay is the M390. The flat square tiles are some bonus plainsman coffee clay tiles that were tested with this particular glaze but weren't used for all the glazes at the workshop. Also included in the photos is this list of colorants and percentages. So here is a list of all the colorants that we used, and this list corresponds with the way that the test tiles are organized in the photograph. So you can see each row is a different colorant or a different percentage of colorant, and then each row of test tiles represents that colorant. I always say what I want to say, and then I have to read it, and I repeat myself. So each row represents a different colorant that was tested, and the test tiles in the photo are organized to reflect the order of this list. So starting at the top row in the photo, those light glazes are the base recipe with no colorants added. Then you work your way down with the colorant list. The second row has 5% manganese dioxide. The third row has 1% copper carbonate. Fourth row has 3% copper carbonate, etc. Do you see how it works? Here are the 9 colorants, and you can click on the image to expand, and then click the link below the image to go to the recipe on Glazey. So if you click this image, it just gets bigger on your screen, so you can see it better. And then if you click this link, this will take you to the recipe on Glazey so that you could make it for yourself. So this is my calcium matte glaze that we were just looking at. Then we've got a brain crawl base. So this is the brain crawl that is used at Cedar Hill Studio where I work. And so it's really interesting to see this crawl glaze with all the different colorants. And these test tiles, the glaze is a little on the thin side, so the glaze didn't crawl. But I think if we removed a little bit of water from this glaze, that it would have a nice crawling effect. So here's interesting to see. In Sue's calcium matte, we've got chrome, 0.5% chrome oxide, turns the glaze green. And then in this brain crawl base, same 0.5% chrome oxide turns the glaze pink. And that has to do with the materials that the glazes are made of. So sometimes chrome can turn a glaze green, and then sometimes it can turn pink. This recipe has magnesium and zinc, a lot of magnesium and zinc, which often when combined with chrome, then will turn chrome pink. So chrome, zinc, pink, you can remember that. Sue's Black Velvet base. So this is another matte glaze. If you're looking for a matte glaze, and you can see, so this is a matte glaze here, and then this is a matte glaze here, and the results are slightly different. So depending on the tone of color that you're looking for, you may choose one over the other. And here, chrome, 0.5% chrome turns the glaze this kind of brown, tannish brown color. So chrome. So depending on the base recipe, the colorants react very differently. Cobalt almost always turns blue, but you can see, so these are the cobalt samples here. So here we have like a very different tone of blue than we have here. And that's just based on the zinc and magnesium in this glaze versus this glaze, which I can't remember what the fluxes are, but the secondary flux choice is what influences the color response of all the colorants. Then here's my clear base. So some really nice colors with clear. So if you're looking for a glossy glaze, this would be a glossy base recipe. And then so all the colored versions are glossy as well. Here we have chrome turning the glaze green again. Sue's blue base, and so blue. So this looks like what the glaze that I'm used to seeing looks like here, but then seeing it with all the different colorants is really interesting. And then this is another matte glaze that has a bunch of rutile in it. And so sometimes when you do a color run test, you want to remove all the colorants and opacifiers. So rutile is an opacifier, but also kind of a colorant. And you can add rutile and different colorants like copper and cobalt and iron. You can combine the two. So all of these base glazes have the rutile in them. And then, so we left the rutile in the base glaze, and then we also added colorants on top of that. And then this is our sapphire base. So this is from Sapphire Blue. And I believe I can't remember if we removed the rutile or left it in. It looks like we probably left it in. But I can't remember. But yeah, so that's the thing, is like when you're doing a color run, you could remove all the rutile or titanium, test it with different colorants, and then you could add a bit of rutile and see what happens there. So there's lots of different things you can do. Here we've got chrome turning the glaze like kind of this mossy green color. So another very different result coming from chrome. And then here the copper samples are giving us more of a green color, whereas over here we get more of like this bluish turquoise with copper. So it's just interesting to see all the different results that you can get with the colorants in different base recipes. And then Sue's white. So this is just my clear glaze plus 10% Zircopax. And then that is the base recipe. And then we added all the colorants to that. So you can see on the top, this base glaze is just my clear glaze with 10% Zircopax. And so all of these samples have 10% Zircopax added to the base, and then the colorants added on top. So I wish the clear and the white were next to each other. Wait, where's the clear? Okay, so here's the clear. So this is the same glaze as the white, except without the Zircopax. And then and then when you add the Zircopax, it just like, it's kind of like adding white paint to another color of paint. It opacifies the glaze, so it's no longer transparent. It kind of gives it more of a milky look to it. And then that influences the colors as well. And then Sue's BGP, so this is our blue-green pink glaze, which I just shortened it to BGP because sometimes the name can confuse people. The pink is for when we fire the blue-green glaze in reduction, then it turns pink or red. So some lovely colors. I really like this glaze and the colors that come out of here. And so the thing is if you take a base glaze and then you find a few different color variations that you like with that one base glaze, then all of those colored glazes are going to be very compatible with each other. So you're not going to have issues with like your inside glaze having a different thermal expansion from your outside glaze, because sometimes when you use very different glaze recipes on the inside versus the outside, you can have issues with denting and that sort of thing. So when you have glazes that are made from the same base recipe, then they're very compatible with each other. When you're layering and overlapping, they kind of blend together. Whereas when you have very different glazes and then you overlap them, you can get some kind of crazy different results, which you might like, or you might like things to be a little more subtle and matching and blending with the same types of surfaces all the way around. So here, the chrome, I always like to look at the chrome sample. So we're getting kind of this brown tan color. So chrome is a very variable colorant. So here the chrome is turning the glaze like a grass green color. And then we got brown from chrome. And then Sue's Randy's red variation base. So this is the standard Randy's red recipe, which I removed the bone ash from, and I made a few other adjustments just to see what would happen. So it's not Randy's red. It's just a variation. So I started with Randy's red and then I made some changes. But these are some really, really cool results. Some really nice like crystallization happening. This glaze ran a lot. So if you're going to try this glaze and you're firing to cone 6, just make sure you're protecting your kiln shelves, or you're only using it near the top, or you're using a thin application because this base glaze, a lot of the samples ran. But our kiln also slightly overfired in some parts of the kiln. We had some cone 7s going down around the kiln. So that could be a factor as well. So those are the 9 base recipes, all with different colorants. And here we've got our chrome sample again is just making this tan brown color, which you might be looking for. It looks quite similar to the iron results here. So yeah, all you need to do is you look at the colorant list, and each row is going to represent the colorant on the list. And then someone was asking me what these, so row number 10 is 3% cobalt, 3% manganese, and 3% red iron oxide. And that was a colorant combination that we used when I was in school and we were doing all these colorant testing. And sometimes that will give a black glaze. So here it's quite, you can see it's quite brown. This one, it's hard to see that row, but this looks like it might be black. And yeah, so if you're looking for a black glaze, this looks like it's quite black. It's hard to see in the photographs, but basically black, when you have a high saturation of colorant in a glaze, that's often how you get black. I know with my black velvet here, so Sue's Black Velvet base, in order to get black, the version that I'm used to using, we use 9% red iron oxide and then 2% cobalt, and that gives black. And so that's like 11% colorant, and then here we have 9% colorant. And so sometimes if you test it and you're looking for black, and say it's a little on the brown side, you might want to increase the cobalt. Cobalt gives bluish tones, and iron gives brownish tones. And so you might want to adjust those percentages to kind of compensate for, like, if you get a bluish black or a brownish black, then you can adjust your colorants in that way. Let me just check the comments here. Somebody says, do your Glazy recipes have notes about which ones run? No, they don't have notes. I might have written a note about this Randy's Red. This was the only one that ran significantly enough to mention, although we did kind of overfire. So none of these really should run if they're being fired to cone 6, with the exception of possibly this one. But they didn't all run. But then these are just little test tiles. So if you put the glaze on a larger piece, there's a higher potential for it to run. But I would always, when you're testing a glaze recipe that you've never used before, I would always plan for it to possibly run and protect your kiln shelves, and just make sure that you're not going to have a disaster. Bilgin, sorry if I'm saying your name incorrectly. When you say made some adjustments, are they in the article? How can we simulate it? So I made some adjustments to this Randy's Red variation. So when you click this link, this is going to take you to the base glaze that we used for this colorant run. And if you look at the original Randy's Red recipe, you'll see that they're kind of different. And so that's the difference, is that this isn't Randy's Red minus colorants and then plus all the colorants. This is just a variation, but when you click the link, it'll give you the exact recipe that we used. Wendy says, do the recipes let you know if they're matte or glossy? Being new to all of this, or when mixing, use the famous chart to let you know. So I think when I uploaded these, I'd have to check. So when you upload a recipe to Glazy, there's like a drop down box that you can select whether the glaze is matte or glossy. And I can't remember if I did that. But I have, like, since I normally would do that. I just can't remember if I did that at this time, because I posted these a couple of years ago. But yeah, there is a spot in Glazy for the person who uploads the recipe to indicate whether it's matte or glossy. But you can kind of, well, yeah, you can kind of tell in the picture. This is a glossy glaze that's kind of crystallizing in the cooling cycle. But there is a place to indicate. And the great thing about Glazy is if you find a recipe that you're interested in and you have questions, there's a place where you can comment on the recipe, and then the owner of the recipe can respond to you. Facebook user, how do I find your recipes on Glazy? So there are links in this blog post. So if you go to bit.ly/99 glazes, all of these links will bring you to my recipe. And at the beginning of the blog post, let me just see here. So this link, I made a bookmarked collection of all the workshop recipes. This will bring you to this whole collection of glaze recipes. And then if you can see at the top of this page, if you just click Sue McLeod, then that will bring you to all of my published recipes. And then Whitehorse Workshop, that's just the bookmarked collection within my recipes. It's just a way of organizing all the recipes. Linda, are all of these base glazes okay to use for a liner glaze? Yes, I do believe so. I mean, I would choose the glossy glazes for a liner glaze over a matte glaze. But the only matte glazes in this list are Sue's Calcium Matte, Sue's Black Velvet, and the blue. So of all of these, there's 3 that are matte. So the calcium matte, the black velvet, and the blue, those are all matte glazes, and then the rest are glossy, and any of them would be suitable to use as a liner. Oh, Angelica, thank you for posting the link to my glaze recipes on Glazey. That's awesome. Lynn says there are no reds or oranges. Can these colors be made with these base glazes? So reds and oranges often come from iron. So if you look at this, so these are the 3 iron examples. So here we've got, I think it's 10%. Yes. So we've got 2, 5, and 10% red iron oxide. So 2, 5, and 10%. So, I mean, this 10% red iron oxide gives kind of an orangey brick reddish color. So high concentrations of iron in a base. So you could try different bases with different like high concentrations of iron. So these have kind of an orange tone to them. These aren't really, let's see, I'll go through them. Yeah, so none of these are super red or orange. They're more kind of on the yellow and brown side. So yeah, it's hard to know which glazes are going to give which colors without testing them. So I mean, you just have to, what you can do is if you go into Glazey and just search for reds and oranges, and then look at the patterns, look at the colorants for those base recipes, and then you can try those colorant. So they might have higher concentrations of iron, so over 10% iron, or they might have something else that is added to it that's going to give it the red or the orange tone. I know with Randy's Red, the original recipe, it has bone ash, and bone ash combined with red iron oxide is often what gives those red tones. It's a quite finicky glaze. We get really good results. Our kiln cools super slowly, so oftentimes you need a slow cooled kiln to get that brick red color from the Randy's Red base recipe, or like the original recipe. And so I believe our Randy's Red recipe has like 15% red iron oxide, and then a couple percent bone ash. And then there's probably some other chemistry going on that contributes to that red and orange color. But that's something I think you're in my workshop. So if you're taking my glaze mixing workshop, I'll make sure to find some reds and orange glazes, and then look at the colorants and see if we can kind of find like the path to reds and orange glazes in the workshop. Okay, so back to, let me just check the comments again. Oh, Angelica says, why would you line glossy rather than matte? Just because, so if you, cutlery marking happens with matte glazes, very unlikely with a well melted glossy glaze. And just like the feel of the glaze, like when I'm eating, I've made pots, mugs, and bowls with matte glazes on the inside, and I just don't prefer it. So that's just a recommendation and my personal preference. You can use matte glazes on the inside. It's just has like a bit of a scratchy feeling, and so it makes a noise that bothers me with utensils. And then like cutlery marking. So a matte glaze is crystals growing in a glass, and those crystals growing in the glass that make the glaze matte also have like a very microscopically rough surface. And depending on the quality of your silverware, if the glaze surface is harder than the metal of the cutlery, then the metal is going to rub off onto the glaze surface. And glazes, a well-melted glaze that has sufficient amount of silica and is a very hard material. And so a lot of cutlery is going to mark on a matte glaze. And it's not the glaze's fault. It's not really the cutlery's fault. That's just kind of the physics of it, is like dragging a piece of soft metal, because metal is quite soft relatively. It's going to leave a little bit of metal marking behind. So that's why I would prefer a glossy liner rather than a matte liner. Facebook user says, I wish I could see who. Facebook user says, I tested your calcium matte on 2 different clay bodies last week and will post a photo to the Facebook group later today. Awesome. Yeah, that would be great. Glazy is a great resource. And thanks again, Sue, for sharing all of this. Of course. I put that link in and it said no recipes found. Okay. So I think that's referring to the link to my glaze recipes. It should be glazy.org/u for user /Sue McLeod Ceramics. And that should get you to all of my glaze recipes. Yeah, so let me know if that is working. Oh, Linda says oranges and reds would need mason stains instead, maybe. Yeah. I mean, if you want to use mason stains, that's a great way to get the color that you're after. Because the stains are often, not always, but for the most part, what you see is what you get. So if you're looking for a very specific color, then mason stains are a good way to get that. So you could test a base glaze with a bunch of different mason stains and then see which colors you get. Okay. So I think I'm caught up with the comments. Let me know if you guys are still having trouble finding my base recipes. And if so, at the end, I'll find the link and then I'll post the link. But it looks like Angelica is posting some good links that should be working. Okay. So seeing all the colors of a color run together gives you an idea of the general tone of colors that are possible with that particular base recipe. If you like the overall tone of colors, you may want to explore that base recipe further by using different concentrations, percentages of colorant to make the colors paler or lighter or deeper or darker. You can add opacifiers to remove transparency, whiten colors, and or promote microcrystallization. So opacifiers, the 3 main opacifiers are Zircopax or zirconium silicate. It might be sold under different names. And then titanium dioxide or rutile is also high in titanium. And then tin oxide. So those are like the 3 main opacifiers, and they all work in different ways. And they have different price points as well. So tin is quite expensive. If you're just looking to whiten a clear glaze, I would use Zircopax. But then tin also has some properties that interact with the colorants. And so there's a reason why we would choose tin over other opacifiers, but it is quite a lot more expensive. And then you can also blend colorants together. So you could take 5% red iron oxide and 3% copper. Like you can actually take the 2 glaze cups that you made. So after you've done your color run and you've dipped your test tiles, then you could start blending them together. And you can do line blends and triaxial blends. There's lots of really great information on Glazy in the help section. There's like some for doing triaxial blending and biaxial blending. He's got like diagrams that show you how the colorants all blend together. And so that's a great resource as well. If you go into glazey.org and then go into the help section, there's lots of really great information there. The possibilities are endless. Every base glaze is going to react differently and create different colors with each colorant, depending on which materials are in the base. For example, in some recipes, chrome turns the glaze green, in others it turns brown, and in others it turns pink, as I showed you earlier. I hope these tests inspire you to do some glaze testing of your own. You don't have to use my recipes. You can take any recipe at all and remove existing colorants to get the base recipe. Then you can use my colorant list, or you can design a color run of your own by adding different percentages of the colorants you have available. This post assumes that you already know how to mix a glaze from scratch. If you haven't mixed a glaze from scratch before and you want to learn, then I'm teaching an online workshop called Mix Your Own Glazes from Scratch, where I'll show you all the steps to mix a glaze, and then we're going to do color runs. So I'm going to show you all the steps for mixing a base glaze, and then designing the color run and doing all the colorant testing and dipping test tiles and firing them and everything. So the registration is open till April 23rd. The workshop is on April 24th, and then you'll have 3 months access to watch it afterwards. So if you can't make the date and the time, don't worry about it, because the workshop isn't really designed for you to follow along while I'm teaching. I'm going to pack as much information as I can into the 3 hours of the workshop. So it would be best if you just sit and watch, have your notebook and your coffee, take lots of notes, and then go into your studio and implement everything that you've learned. So let me check the comments again. Wendy Lee says, I just clicked on Angelica's message and it took me right there. Okay, the second one works. So the second link that Angelica, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, that she posted will take you right to my glaze recipes. And then she says, what opacifier is best for promoting microcrystallization? Yeah, so that's titanium. So titanium dioxide is 100% pure titanium. And then rutile is about 90% titanium, 10% iron. So rutile is just has a bit of iron in it. So it kind of gives some color to the glaze, as well as the opacification and the microcrystallization. And so the way titanium works is that the glaze will melt into a glossy glaze, and then in the cooling cycle, that's when the molecules all organize themselves and they will start to crystallize in the cooling cycle. So depending on the concentration of titanium in the recipe, you might get little specks of crystals here and there, or if you have quite a lot being like 5-6%, that's usually kind of the max that I see rutile and titanium. Then the whole surface could crystallize, giving you a matte surface. And so it will be dependent on cooling cycle. And so when you're using titanium glazes, using the same kiln each time is going to give you the best consistency of results. And so just keep in mind that if you're looking at recipes that contain titanium dioxide or rutile, that person who posted the photograph may have programmed a cooling cycle, or your kiln size is going to affect the length of the natural cooling. So the time it takes to get from the top temperature down to room temperature naturally is going to change depending on the size of your kiln, the thickness of the bricks in your kiln. And so just to keep that in mind, when you're using these titanium glazes, that results can vary a great deal. So I shared this before, but I have this, it's a glossy glaze, and it has iron chromate as colorant. And So the glass of the glaze is green, and then it also has 4% titanium dioxide. And so it crystallizes a pink color. So you have this green glossy glaze, and then you have little pink crystals throughout. And so I've been firing in a little tiny kiln for years. And then when I took that same glaze, this green glaze that I've been using for so long, and I fired it in the kilns at my work, which are much larger and they have thicker bricks and they take forever to cool, like 2 days to cool. All of a sudden, my green glossy glaze became a pink matte glaze because the cooling cycle took so long that those titanium, the whole surface of the glaze crystallized. The color of the crystals are pink, and so they overtook the green glass to where you can't even tell that the glaze was green to begin with. So very interesting results that you can get from titanium. If you're looking for something a little more stable and predictable, then Zircopax would be the opacifier of choice for that. Linda says, do colorants change the crazing properties of a base glaze on a clay body? Do any of these glazes craze on the M370 samples? Colorants shouldn't have a big impact on crazing. I mean, unless your glaze was like very on the cusp of crazing and the colorant maybe pushed it over the edge or in one direction or the other. But I haven't noticed that a glaze that crazes then doesn't craze with certain colorants. And do any of these glazes craze on the M370 samples? You know, I don't think so. This one I'm not sure of. I don't think this one crazed either. Yeah, so none of these glazes, maybe the blue, green, pink. Let me just go see if I can, I think I went past it. The BGP, this is a glaze that definitely crazes on porcelain, but I think it's fine on the M370. But the rest of them I know are okay. And should be good. But please test them before you go for it and know for sure. So during the workshop, do you expect participants to be in their studios? No, definitely not. I mean, you can be in your studio, but yeah, it's just going to be like a watch and learn type workshop because it would just take too long, like for you to keep up with what I'm saying and like while you're learning and trying to do what I'm saying. So you can watch the workshop from wherever you are and you can watch it over and over again. So like during the live portion of the workshop, you can just be taking notes and then you could play the workshop after while you're in the studio and you can pause and rewind and all of that. And so that could be a way that you could bring the workshop to your studio. But while we're live, it's going to be more information based. And I hope to answer lots of questions during the workshop. So yeah, so you don't need to have all your materials beforehand. I'm going to be talking about like purchasing materials and material names and that sort of thing. So for people who have never purchased materials before, you might want to just wait until after the workshop because I'm going to just be explaining like how to find a recipe, figure out how much material that you need. And so that can be something that you do after the workshop. And then Bilgen also says, when you work with a cone sitter kiln, how do you play with cooling cycle? Yeah, so I forget who, I was talking about this recently, but basically it's just trial and error. So if you have a kiln sitter kiln, basically you need to be there right when the sitter falls, and then you can turn your kiln back on. And so as long as you don't turn it straight up to high again, then the temperature is going to start falling. So depending if you have like multiple dials, they might have like 1 to 10 or low, medium, high. You could turn all your dials on medium. and say leave them for 2 hours and then let it cool naturally. You could turn like the bottom on high, the top on medium. You can just play around and just make sure you take lots of notes so that if you like your result, that you can repeat it for next time. So you could say, okay, the sitter fell at this time, turned both dials on medium, left them for 3 hours, turned to low for 2 hours, and then shut the kiln off. And then you're not really going to know like whether, unless you have a digital pyrometer, which you can get. I purchased one online. So I have a thermocouple that goes into the kiln through one of my peeps in the front, and then it's attached to just a portable pyrometer that gives a temperature reading. So you could be marking down the temperature as the temperature is dropping, just to kind of have a guideline for how fast it's cooling. So there's ways you can kind of do a slow cooling in a kiln sitter kiln, but it just takes some trial and error and messing around, taking lots of notes, and then adjusting the next time. So, okay, this glaze didn't really crystallize, so I'm going to try to make it cool slower. So I'm going to maybe turn one dial up to high so it doesn't cool as fast, that sort of thing. So there is a way. It's not very scientific, but you can do it, and you can kind of make it scientific. As long as you stick with your kiln and you do this repeatedly, you'll really get to know how what you're doing is affecting the results with your glazes. Let's see. Linda says, an offside question. What do you think of test tile kilns? Useful, not worth the money? I mean, I think they're great. So just like a small test kiln, just for firing test tiles. I have 4 kilns of different sizes. The smallest one, I'm not very good at. Smallest one is like 8 inches by 8 inches by 8 inches high. It's a homemade kiln from someone who went to Emily Carr. And then increasing sizes from there. And so the thing about teeny tiny kilns, especially if they aren't programmable. So none of my kilns are programmable at home. If they're not programmable, then they're going to cool really, really fast. And so your results from a test kiln aren't necessarily going to match your results from a larger kiln. And that's because of the cooling cycle. They're also probably going to reach temperature a lot faster. So they're good to get an idea. So you can get results right away and not wait till you fill up a larger kiln. But just keep in mind that the cooling cycle is going to be a lot faster unless you're programming in a slower cooling cycle. And what you could do is you can take your large kiln and you can kind of map out the cooling cycle. So if it has, if it's a computerized kiln, what you can do is you can, as the kiln is cooling, you can take temperature measurements periodically as the temperature drops. And then you can try to recreate that cooling cycle in your teeny tiny test kiln as long as it has a digital programmer on it. So I am all for getting a test kiln, just as long as you know that results can vary, and that but using it like to just test a whole bunch of glazes just to find some results that you maybe want to test further and then test in your larger kiln before you start putting them on all of your pots. Okay, I think I got to the end of the questions. Let me know if you have any other questions. Otherwise, this has been fun. I love looking at test tiles and glaze colorants and everything, and I love chatting with you guys. So thank you all for joining me for story time. Joan, yeah, thank you, Joan, and I look forward to the workshop on the 24th as well. Yeah, it's going to be fun. I love teaching this stuff. So yeah, it's going to be great. So if you haven't signed up and you want to join, please do so. And you can go to bit.ly/glaze mixing workshop if you want more information about the workshop. Deb says she's looking forward to the workshop too. Yes, awesome. Yeah, I see a lot of people that are here today have already signed up. So thank you for that. And I will see you on the 24th if you join me for the glaze mixing workshop. Okay, take care. Have a good day.